This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube, Twitter, and everything else, answer them here in video format. A fun reminder, if you want to make sure your questions hit the channel, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and comment on the question post when it comes up on the community page. That out the way, let's get into these questions. First question is gonna be from Noah, who says, what's the likelihood of Myles Garrett extension this offseason? He seems grossly underpaid these days. I wouldn't want to play on this contract if I were him. I mean, that's not really up to him at this point. So the way that most contracts in the NFL work is there's guaranteed money. When you're out of guaranteed money, the contract is effectively on loose terms. So right now, for this next year, Myles is still playing on guaranteed money, which means it's probably not going to benefit him to renegotiate his deal or get an extension. Next year, when he's out of guaranteed money, he will likely get an extension, because not only is Myles Garrett going to be incentivized to come back to the bargaining table for an extension, the Cleveland Browns will be incentivized to extend Myles Garrett, because those non-guaranteed years are often the years where they balloon the cap number to make sure that they can have it lower in earlier contracts. It just benefits all sides to work out an extension if that player is a part of the Browns' long-term plan. So next year is when Myles Garrett will look for that extension. Right now, he has too much guaranteed money left on his contract to really be worried about an extension at this point. The next question comes from Trent, who says, historically, AB has done an awesome job of tailoring the talents of the team to our AFC North rivals. Do you think a Higgins would increase the a trade of Higgins would increase the likelihood of Greg Newsome being traded? Or is that not really a thing? I don't really think it's a thing, because I don't see how trading Greg Newsome makes you better. And the Browns are going to look at everything right now through that lens, because this is the year where they're trying to win it all, right? They want to get Deshaun healthy. They're really making some bets on some players on some one-year deals. They're not going to make a decision that will give them more draft capital this year. They're going to make decisions this year based on what will make them a better football team right now. And I don't think anybody's willing to offer you anything that's going to make you a better football team right now than just having Greg Newsome. Now, if a fledgling team decides to offer a second for next year, it might be something that they look at. If a fledgling team offers a first next year, I think they will take it. But outside of that happening, which I find highly unlikely, I don't see the Browns really considering trading Greg Newsome, because the money's not to a point to where they need to do it. Yes, you might not keep him if you don't take the fifth-year option, but the fifth-year option is not incredibly bad. You do have concerns with Denzel Ward and the amount of concussions that he's had long-term, so you worry about how much longer is Denzel Ward going to play football. So there's still an area of opportunity for Greg Newsome to be very useful to this team, and I think the Browns are probably going to be their usual pragmatic selves about it. The next question is from I Have A Chub, who says, what is the order of likeliness in where a Cleveland sports team wins a championship? The Browns, the Guardians, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And after ranking them 1, 2, 3, maybe give a time frame that you can see a championship happen. The Browns are probably number one on that list. I think if a team from Cleveland wins a championship in the next 3 years, it's likely to be the Browns, because they're the one team that, you know, all their players are in that perfect range where they play their best football, right? Their best players are 27, 28 to 30. So they're in their peak window for this current core of the roster, which you can't say for the Cavaliers and you can't really say for the Guardians. Because the nature of baseball is so random, I hesitate just throwing it out. But, every once in a while, a random team does win a World Series. I don't think it would be crazy if that random team would be the Guardians, but I would say the Guardians are pretty much at 3. The Cleveland Cavaliers are at 2. They're not the team that's going to be able to win a championship right now. I think they're a couple of revisions away. They still need a wing. They still need to get bigger. At the 4 or 5, and whether that be Evan Mobley getting bigger, whether that be having a better rotation of bigs in there, they still need to get bigger there. I think they have to make a decision on Garland as far as his future with the Cavs. You have to see what happens with Donovan Mitchell. I think Evan Mobley has been developing nicely, so that is a good sign for the Cavs. But let's say you do build a championship team around Evan Mobley, you're talking about he's 22 right now, 22, 23 years old. You're probably talking about 4 or 5 more years for the Cavs to really be in that window to win a championship. These next 4 years, they'll be good playoff team, but not really a championship contender. The Browns, they could do it right now. It all depends on, if some things go their way. With the Cavs, they can't win a championship this year. Guardians, same thing, but even though baseball is random, right? But yeah, that's where I have them ranked. Thank you for the question. Alexander Harrell says, Alexander Harrell, man, I don't know why I said it like that. Will the Browns trade the 54th pick to get an extra 3rd and 4th round pick? What's the likelihood that Andrew Berry takes a cornerback? I do think the Browns could trade back. I don't think that's crazy. I don't know who could be available that could force a pretty hefty trade back package. But I do think the Browns will be looking to trade back. As far as will AB take a cornerback, I don't think they will, because there's really no need to take a cornerback. But they probably will, just because AB loves taking cornerbacks, maybe in the 6th or 7th round. Dog Pound Derek says, will the age guide rails for the Cleveland for Andrew Berry change now that college and NIL will keep kids in school longer? We'll see how long that lasts. This might just be a 1 or 2 year trend. The Browns aren't going to change their whole philosophy for a 1-2 year trend. This might be a long-term thing when it comes to college, the NIL, what the eligibility rules are going to be. Here's something I don't think a lot of people are thinking about. How much are the eligibility rules going to change if the big schools move away from the NCAA? Will that mean that players will be able to play college football if they reclassify, skip a grade, and start playing college football at 17, meaning they'll get out of college by age 20? I think the landscape in college football is in flux. So I think the Browns will kind of hold on to their current philosophy until things kind of stabilize. But with NIL, with the transfer portal, with teams threatening to create their own conference or super league, it's obvious to me that college football is in a transition state. And because that's the case, I think it's something that we should, or the Browns will kind of just wait and see when it comes to changing their approach. Because right now, this has been an old draft, but that just might be this year, right? But thanks for the question. Next question comes from Gagan S., who says, do you think the reason Mike VRABEL was brought in here was to modernize the secondary schematically, or will Schwarz stick to his old cover 1 and 3 man ways? I don't think Mike VRABEL was brought in to really handle X's and O's as much as he is to be just a consultant, right? I don't think he's going to be there day to day. He's not an everyday member of the Cleveland Browns coaching staff. He'll probably not even be there on the sidelines. I don't think he's a schematic hire. I think he's somebody who's there to provide counsel to coaches who need to hear from other guys who have made similar transitions to him, right? I think he's there for the college coaches that are transitioning to the professional locker room. I think he's there for any coach that needs advice on how to better handle and speak and communicate to professional football players versus college players. I think that's where his role is going to be. I don't think he's going to be there cooking up schemes. Like maybe he can oversee some stuff if he sees a problem or an area of exploitation. He'll let Jim Schwarz know so Jim Schwarz can patch it. But I would not expect Mike VRABEL to be out there with the clipboard drawing stuff up on the whiteboard. I don't think that's a fair expectation of him, given that he's hired as a consultant. Rob says, is there any post-draft big trade potential for DeForest Buckner similar to Big Zadarius Smith? The Browns are pretty much set, right? Like they could do something. It wouldn't shock me, but they're pretty much set roster-wise, and I don't know how much more they need to do. They have one of the best defensive lines in football as it stands. Linebacker is a little thin, but they do have a emerging star in JOK there. Also, Grant Delpit helps out with a lot of linebacker responsibilities, given how close he plays to the line of scrimmage at that safety position. You brought back Rodney McLeod to hold down the other safety spot when Grant Delpit's down in the box. You got Juan Thornhill. You have a bunch of really good corners. Offensively, you went out, got Jerry Jeudy, so you added a wide receiver. You've added maybe you go out and draft a tight end. Maybe you go out and get a tight end, but I don't think you really need one because you got David Njoku holding down the fort there. Offensive line, you got a lot of money invested in the offensive line as it stands. I doubt they'll add more to it because of a trade. So I think the Browns are pretty much set. And look, as far as decks go, and if you refer to the roster as like a deck of cards is what I'm saying, pretty good deck of cards to have if you're the Cleveland Browns, so I wouldn't be mad at it. This is a deck that can give you a hand that can win. The next question comes from Mike Burkholder, who says, it seems like every year Andrew Berry drafts a position that we think we're good at, i.e. corner. Martin Emerson, what position group could you see him going after with the first pick? I'm somewhat getting a read at safety. I think safety, edge, and defensive tackle. I don't expect the Browns to draft anybody at those positions, but I really wouldn't be surprised if they drafted somebody at those positions. This next question comes from RJ Sports Facts, who says, what's up, Quincy? This is Giant Nation from back in the day. Yeah, man, I remember you from them 2019 days. That was early on. I think that was even before I had kind of that set behind me. So shout out to you, man. Welcome back. My question is, do you think Nick Chubb will win Comeback Player of the Year? I don't know, because I don't know how many games Nick Chubb's going to play, or even if Nick Chubb starts the year, which I do think Nick Chubb will start the year. Like, that's my hunch on it. I think Nick Chubb will start the year, but I do think that his carries won't go to full blow until like halfway through the season. And I think it will be very hard for him to have a crazy Nick Chubb season without that. That being said, it's Nick Chubb we're talking about. And Nick Chubb's always been an outlier his entire life. I wouldn't be surprised if he became an outlier when it comes to this. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Jeffrey said, the real question on Comeback Player of the Year is like, will a Brown win it? Because the Browns have like the highest percentage of players eligible to be on Comeback Player. They have the quarterback. They have Nick Chubb that's eligible to win it. I mean, like, so many guys on this roster could win Comeback Player of the Year. It's kind of Jerry Jeudy could win Comeback Player of the Year. The way people have been talking about him, if he has a 1,400-yard season, he's gonna feel like the Comeback Player of the Year. So the Browns have a ton of guys who can win that award this year. Some because of injuries, some because of other things, but it's going to be interesting. Jeffrey says, behind Chubb, who do you think is the best running back on the roster? I personally think it's Donta Foreman. Will be an improvement over Jerome Ford, but I'm interested to hear your take. I think we're looking at this too, like, uniformly. I think it really depends on the role that you're asking a running back to fill. If you're asking Jerome Ford or Donta Foreman to hold down a feature back role, 3 downs, a lot of like, we just want you to get 5 yards kind of runs. then Donta Foreman is going to be better than that. He's a bigger back. He's more downhill. He's built for that. Jerome Ford is not. It's not the type of running back that Jerome Ford is. If we're talking about somebody who could be a third down back, Jerome Ford blows Donta Foreman out the water. He is much better at all that stuff. He's a much better receiver. He's a much better, home run hitter as a running back. Like he's good at pass protection. Like Jerome Ford's a really good third down back. I think these two kind of play different positions in the same subgroup is what I'm saying. Donta Foreman is somebody who, if you need a backup to take over 3 down responsibilities, that's what he's great for. If you need your backup to be the receiving back, he's not great for that. Jerome Ford is. I think they serve different purposes, in my opinion. Mike Burke says, will the salary cap ever stop increasing? I worry that we keep kicking the can down the road on these contracts with players. I mean, 10, 15 years, what's it going to be? 600 million, quarterbacks making 100 million a year. Thanks for your hard work. I mean, if we go back 10, 15 years, the idea of a quarterback getting a $270 million contract or making close to $50 million a year sounded similarly as absurd, if not more absurd, than a quarterback making 100 mil a year for us in 2024. So that's always something to keep in mind. Will the salary cap ever stop increasing? You don't anticipate it will, because if things stay normal, the salary cap will increase. The things that could make the salary cap decrease if there is another pandemic, if there's basically something that stops society from going to football games or taking in football games, which would have to be something serious, like a serious cultural moment for that to happen, then okay. But given that I don't think we're going to see multiple things, and I knock on wood, I don't think we're going to see multiple things in our lifetime that are going to shut down the sports industry like the coronavirus pandemic did in 2020. I don't think that it's likely that the salary cap will ever stop increasing, because it's based on ad revenues, it's based on viewership, it's based on popularity of the league. The league has been getting more popular. It's the number one sports in the United States, which is the number one market for a lot of businesses out there. The value is going to keep going up in the relative future. And the Browns aren't trying to like kick the can down the road 15 years. They're really kicking the can down the road 5 years. So it's a bit of a safer bet. But yeah, when we're talking about what can make the salary cap stop increasing, you're talking about the pandemic. You're talking about things that would shut down society, right? 9/11, pandemic, things like that. And I don't anticipate, which you never do, another thing like that happening. If it does, they'll be in a tough spot. But given that nobody expects that to happen, it's a pretty safe bet to say that it's probably going to go up within the next few years. But that is it for all of the questions. Thank you guys for asking them. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.